The Limping Woman. You hear the uneven footsteps first. That's how you know she's behind you. The heel is broken off her left shoe, and she drags it across the ground with every step, a sharp contrast to the steady click of her still intact pump. "Help me," she whispers. It's an urgent, anguished plea. "Please, I'm hurt. Help me." Don't turn around. That's when she gets you. Don't run. She'll still get you. But this time she's gonna make it hurt. At least that's how the rumor goes anyways. Every small town has at least one. A local urban legend that everyone knows and swears is true because their sisters, best friends, cousins, neighbors' grandson knew a fellow who actually encountered it. Ours was the Limping Woman, so named for her aforementioned distinct gait. It was said that she was a teacher at the elementary school some decades before. Young, beautiful, and the victim of a terrible murder. She had been walking home to the house she shared with her parents one night after school when she realized she was being followed. She sped up, and so did her pursuer, until both were running down this dark country lane with only open farmland on the other side. Her heel broke and her ankle snapped. She fell, and her pursuer became her murderer. It was a slow, torturous affair that left her beaten and covered in stab wounds. And when the killer was done, he left her to bleed out beside the road. She wasn't found until the next morning, and by then, all anyone could do was search for the person responsible. While some believe the man was caught and dealt with not long after, others think he's still at large, and the Limping Woman, as the victim came to be known as, won't rest until her killer is caught. I was always skeptical at best of the story. I'd pass by the spot where she was supposed to appear 100 times without incident, as did everyone else I knew. If a murderous ghost lived there, I was pretty sure I'd seen her. I said as much to my friend Steffi when he brought up that friend of a friend of a friend met the Limping Woman during lunch at school one day. "It's true, she was out on the old highway a couple nights ago and she saw her," Steffi insisted stubbornly over our sandwiches. It was actually true, wouldn't she be dead?" I asked. "I thought you weren't supposed to turn around." "Fine then, whatever." "Heard her. You know what I mean, Jason." "Sure." I rolled my eyes. It always frustrated Steffi that I didn't share his willingness to believe the unbelievable. "So, how did she get away?" "She said the words. Duh." "Oh, right. The woman's last words. Last words we all somehow know without ever having caught the one person who had heard them." "We know them because the real killer was never caught. He told people who told other people. And we all just magically knew them to ward off being killed," I finished for him. Steffi frowned. He loved all things spooky and supernatural and had spent a lot of time researching our local legends, especially the Limping Woman. "It's not magic. It just reminds her of her own mother, and she gets distracted by her own grief. She leaves you alone." Okay, I said, hoping that would be enough to put an end to the topic. It was an argument neither of us would win, and I didn't feel like getting into it again over whether or not the ghost was real. At 15, it was starting to feel silly. Steffi, however, wasn't going to let me off so easily. "They say she still remains there because they got the wrong guy, and she's angry about it. Everyone knew it, but no one cared because they wanted to blame someone for it. Don't you feel at least a little bad for her? She's still there waiting for justice after all this time." "Steffi, come on." "She only goes after people who don't believe in her, you know." I didn't like the way Steffi said that, like he had an idea forming that I wouldn't approve of, and I shook my head. "Whatever it is, no." "We can go out there, out to the spot she haunts." "No, don't be dumb," I said. "You don't believe anyways, so what's the big deal?" "I've walked past there a lot, okay? Nothing ever happens." "Have you gone after dark?" Steffi had started to smile. "No, but so what?" "That's when she's active.
Going in the day doesn't count.
This is dumb, I said again.
Well, go tonight.
Every argument I had was met with questions of whether I was too afraid, and Steffi mocking me for being a chicken. He kept it up for the rest of lunch, through our shared science class, and then passed me notes between classes after that. By the time the final bell rang, he had worn me down. But not because I believe she's there. I made sure he knew. I'm going, so you shut up. The sun set just after 5 that evening. At 7, we met up on our bikes in front of my neighborhood. His parents thought that he was doing a project at mine, and my parents thought I was doing a project at his. And we had 2 hours to ride out to the farm where the limping woman was said to haunt and get back before they started trading phone calls. We pedaled hard and fast, leaving behind the glow from windows and street lamps until darkness swallowed up the world around us. With only moonlight to guide us, we wove our way across town and passed into the outskirts, where the insects were louder and the stars brighter, and our safety that came from feeling like you were surrounded by other people fell away. It was hard not to feel entirely exposed out on the old road, where flat fields rolled off into the distance on either side. There was an occasional barn or farmhouse set ways off down the long, dusty drives, but otherwise, it was really just us on our bikes that night.
Up ahead, Steffi said from behind me. See the cross? That's the marker for her.
We skid to a stop a few yards away from it and exchanged a glance almost lost in the shadows.
Scared?
He asked, breathless with excitement.
No,
I said. It was an honest enough answer. I was nervous, sure, but who wouldn't be when you're outside after dark?
Remember, if you turn around, she gets you. If you try to run, she makes it worse. Just stand still when she's close by and say the words.
Steffi spoke so serious I had to keep myself from laughing. It was ridiculous. I kept trying to tell that to the butterfly stirring in my stomach, but it didn't do much good. We climbed off our bikes and set them to the side of the road with the kickstands on. Steffi groped about for my hand and intertwined his fingers with mine. I know it sounds ridiculous, but what else is a best friend for?
Are you ready?
Steffi said. Let's just get this over with, I replied. We walked up to where the cross was placed and paused. Steffi squeezed my hand and took a slow, shuddering breath. His fear was starting to have an effect on me, quickening my heartbeat, but I squared my shoulders and clenched my jaw and took a step forward. We crept along the roadside, careful to keep our eyes pointed straight ahead. Steffi kept reminding me in a trembling whisper that looking anywhere else could lead to trouble. A minute or two had passed. It couldn't have been longer than that, despite feeling like it, and nothing seemed to happen. My fear began to ebb, replaced by admittedly relieved giddiness. I had been right, and I almost turned to Steffi to say, "I told you so." And then I realized how quiet it was. All the insects that had been singing loudly when we arrived had gone silent. There was no distant calls from the night birds, no breeze passing over us. Nothing. Just the sound of our own breathing. To my surprise, Steffi sighed, disappointed. I wondered if he realized how quiet everything had become. How could he not feel claustrophobic on that open road? How closed off we were in the dark and silence. I wanted to ask him, but the question was like a knot in my throat that I couldn't untangle. Behind us, grass rustled, followed by the crunch loose of gravel underfoot, like someone was pulling themselves slowly out of the field and onto the road. Every hair on my body stood up at once. "Jason?" I didn't realize that my grip on Steffi's hand had tightened so much I could feel his eyes on me, but I couldn't bring myself to look at him. From somewhere over my shoulder, a woman started to sob softly. "Help me," she cried. "Jason?" Steffi said again. She's coming," I managed to whisper. Instead of being scared, Steffi snorted. "Real funny. I get it, okay? The limping woman is just made up. I'm convinced now.
You don't have to rub it in. The unmistakable sound of someone inching towards us, slowly, painfully crying out with each step. Please, she begged. I'm hurt, and he's still out there. Steffi, I hissed, tears burning in my eyes. She's coming. There must have been something in my voice, a tightness only true terror can cause, that convinced my friend I wasn't just pretending. He grabbed my forearm and with the other hand dug until the nails were digging into my skin. She only goes after people who don't believe, Steffi said. That must be why. What do I do? I begged, my mind wide and blank. My entire body was screaming to run, to get away from that thing that was getting closer and closer. But Steffi's firm grasp and my own mounting dread held me in place. Please, the limping woman sobbed. Turn around. Help me. The words, Steffi said hurriedly. You have to say the words when she's right behind you. What words? I wanted to scream, but I couldn't speak or think. I could only hear her. The legend said that you would hear uneven footsteps and be forced to listen to her pleas, but no one ever mentioned the smell. The stench of rot and earth blood oozed through the air, slowly surrounding me, wrapping itself around me like tentacles, smothering me. I gagged and pressed my free hand over my mouth and shook my head violently, trying to clear it, trying to make sense of things. Steffi was jerking on my arm, saying something to me over and over again, but I could hardly hear him over the limping woman's cries. The smell was getting so strong, making my stomach pitch and heave until I thought I'd be sick. I leaned heavily on Steffi. He pulled me in close to that his lips were beside my ear. Through the veil of panic and nausea, I heard him scream. The limping woman was so close behind us now that I can feel the chill radiating off of her. The words, I thought. I had to say the words. It just reminds her of her own mother, and she gets distracted by her grief and leaves you alone. I heard Steffi's voice from the previous day echo in my head. Her mother. The words remind her of her mother, the limping woman's last words. Please, please. Bile rose in the back of my throat. My mother's waiting for me. The footsteps stopped and were replaced by a high-pitched, heart-wrenching king. From somewhere off in the night, a dog started to howl. Insects began to sing again. The wind whistled across the field, sounds of normality, of life. The limping woman continued to screech while I found my legs again. With Steffi in tow, tore back to the bikes. I never once looked up from the ground. The only thing I saw as we darted was a pair of feet, torn stockings and pumps. The heel of one, which was missing. We didn't stop riding until we made it back to my lawn. When we got there, I raced to the bushes on the side of my house and vomited. Steffi claims he didn't hear or see anything that night, but he believes that I did. He believes that I encountered the limping woman. I tried to come up with some kind of realization for it, like power of suggestion or something. But when I think back to those footsteps and those sobs and that final scream, I know there is only one explanation. And now I too believe in the limping woman.
If you like that scary story, please go ahead and like the video. It does help the content coming. Again, it's your boy Okina. If you have any other scary stories, please leave them down in the comments below, and I will be more than happy to read them off for you. Thanks for listening.